Hello everyone. As you can't tell whether or not I'm smiling, welcome to my anonymous video. This will be a short one. I just had this mask out here and I wanted to put it on and make a point here. Now, I've talked to a lot of people who say they want to make YouTube videos, but that they have personal image issues, or they're afraid to be seen, or they don't feel like they can speak their minds very well. I want to urge those people to step out in front of the camera. If you have to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you have to face the camera away from you while you're talking, then do that. But do something to express your point of view. There's nothing wrong with being anonymous. I think one of the problems is that too many people are anonymous, in the sense that we're willing to speak our minds online. We're willing to talk about the issues that we think are important. But when it comes to daily conversation, associating with our friends and family, or at the workplace, we don't want to make waves. And we tend to clam up. When I say we, I mean us as a species. I myself am a little too outspoken. I got myself fired from jobs from being outspoken a couple times. I've had political disagreements with my right-wing bosses about things, and then they just all of a sudden didn't have work anymore. And let me tell you, it's worth it to me. It's worth it to me to know that people know how I really feel. It's worth it to me to know that I don't have to hide who I am and what I believe and how I feel about things. That I can speak my mind when I feel something is important. Because as humans, that is all we have. If you're not out there speaking your mind, then someone else is speaking your mind for you. And that's a fact. We've allowed religion to tell us what's true. We've allowed politicians to tell us what's true. We've allowed the corporations to tell us what's true, what's dangerous, what's not dangerous. There are people who are in positions of power, people who are running the FDA and all these other organizations who have vested interests in lying. And these people become anonymous. These politicians become anonymous behind the mask of their actions and behind the masks of their party. And individualism has become, let me just say, individualism has always been frowned upon in this society. And those who choose to be individuals and free thinkers are labeled as, well, hippies in the 60s. Whatever label you want to give, it doesn't matter. It's how society tells us that if we don't fall into line, like sheep, if you want to use that term, then we're somehow deficient in being human. That we can't get along with our fellow man. That we can't come to terms and agreements. So rather than agreeing on things that we feel in our hearts are right, we agree on things that others tell us are right. Many of the arguments that people have against each other or with each other come from arguments they've heard elsewhere, rather than formulating their own opinions. I find myself doing it. I know everyone does it. We all have to quote something. But I've spoken to a lot of people who say, hey, I really, really want to speak my mind. I really want to express how I feel. And I think we need more of those people out there. You know, YouTube is a great place to express yourself. And when I was young, when I first found YouTube, I thought, how cheesy. Why do people make videos and upload them? I mean, you know, who cares? And then after I made a few, I started to realize just how rewarding it really is. And I was never anonymous, I guess, from the beginning. And it's not because I give a shit about who I am as compared to what I'm conveying, but rather the people know that I'm willing to show who I am and I'm not afraid to express my opinions, and hoping that that will inspire other people to do the same. There are more than enough YouTube videos of of adults playing with kids' toys, or people playing video games and narrating them, or just nonsense out there. And if you go onto YouTube and say you go on the main page, you will find all kinds of videos about celebrities and nonsense. My point being that if we want to outweigh, if we want people to really hear us, then we can't just post our opinions on blogs or, in some obscure corner of the internet. We've got to get right out there. For example, I Googled Kratom one time on videos, and my video was one of the first ones that came up, and I thought, wow, it took a couple of years for it to get there, but it got there because people found it informative. And I've had people respond and say, dude, thank you so much for telling me about Kratom. It helped me get off opiates. I've had at least 6 or 7 people tell me that they were able to get off opiates using Kratom and thank me. To me, that's enough. It has nothing to do with ego. It's not, look at me, I've helped people. It's a matter of, in my heart, I feel good. I feel good that people have been helped. And I have the humility still to say that, hey, I don't know the dangers. I don't know, maybe it's I know it's addictive. Maybe it's harmful. Use your own common sense. And I think that's why people are afraid to speak their minds, because they don't know if what they're speaking is true or not. And the people who are willing to speak out the most are often the ones who believe that everything they know is true and everyone else is wrong. Some of the biggest YouTube channels are people who are, quote, truthers, who just tear anybody down who has a different opinion. And many of these people are anonymous. They won't show their faces either. And that's fine. But if you're going to put out information, you've got to be able to, back that information up. So I guess what I found, and this started a few years ago when I got into the truther channels, is that most of them are just looking to point the finger at every single thing that happens as being, as part of some giant conspiracy, and everyone who doesn't agree with them to be somehow involved. And this is akin to the Christian view that anyone who doesn't believe the Bible and take Jesus as their Savior is somehow lesser, or just has been fooled. So here's what I'm saying, I guess, is that people seem to think that if you don't agree with what I agree with, then you're a fool. And if you do agree with what I agree with, let's go out and talk shit to all the fools. Or sometimes it's more of a good intent. They just want to help people be informed. So I guess what I'm saying is I can go on and on about this, about information and being aware, but I would like to see the internet flooded with people expressing their disagreements, their views, their opinions. And I don't think that most of the time it's because people are afraid. I think more of the time it's because people don't really have an opinion. And this is something I've found over and over again. If I ask somebody, hey, what do you think about GMOs? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't really thought much of it, or another person might say, they're totally harmful, we should never genetically mess with organisms. And another person would say, of course we should, we're humans, we can make great, better food and feed more people. All three of those viewpoints are different, and none of the last two are to support or deny is really still up in the air. I guess what I'm saying there is that everyone wants to have an opinion, that's fine. But just be willing to bend a little bit on your opinion. And one last thing I want to say. If you are an anonymous, if you have the power to make a difference or to help to most of the anonymous is well known for being computer hackers and whatnot, I'd like to see more action taken on those who deserve it. China's been messing with the internet and getting into files. It doesn't take a genius to know that pretty much every government around the world is tapping into each other's files. And I think that the more that we expose about reality, not the reality we think is true, but the reality we think as a whole is true, the more we can learn from it. And hopefully anonymous will no longer have to be anonymous. That we can all stand up and speak our minds on what we believe. And I know I've spent 10 minutes sitting here just saying, talk about what's important, talk about what you believe. And I haven't said a single thing except that. But I feel so strongly about it, how important it is. When I talk to my mom about this, let's say, she'll say, oh, the internet is just a bunch of people with opinions, and it's impossible to sort through and find, what's true. And I agree with that, or at least I used to, until you start to find out which sites are just nonsense, which ones are, how the internet works, and be able to dig deep to find what you need to find. But I guess my point is that we shouldn't have to dig deep. These things should be prominent right there in the front. Alternative news needs to be more open. It needs to be, the people who follow the mainstream news are very shallow, according to those who follow alternative news, who say, oh, look, everything you're learning is nonsense, you're just sheeple. Yet the people who are listening to the alternative news are stuck on one side too, because if they don't agree with their fellow man, if they don't agree with what the other people in that group are saying, then they're labeled as a shill or a liar, and it's happened to me several times. So, don't knock people down for formulating opinions or disagreeing. Show them why they should agree, instead of calling them names, And all of this is just shit that we already know, I just like to see people be a little more, understanding with each other and very expressive in the way that they think things are. And I think a lot of people are. I guess this is just to urge the people who aren't to step up to the plate, so to speak, and get yourself out there. There's nothing to hide from, And, if I'm that only guy at work who's saying that I disagree with these right-wing thoughts, even though I know that every other one of my coworkers agreed with me, and they wouldn't say anything, that could change if more people speak up. We just finished with this. I guess the metaphor I could use for this is there was a case in New York, I don't remember when it was decades ago I think, where there was a woman being raped out in front of a building. She was being beaten and raped for over half an hour right in front of an apartment building, full apartment building. When the tenants were interviewed later, they said that they had heard it, but they just figured somebody else would take care of it. Nobody called the police or did anything. A half an hour later, the guy came back and raped her again and beat her up again because she was still laying there. I don't know if she lived or what the situation was, but this was an hour-long thing that happened right in front of everyone's goddamn face, and nobody did anything because they expected their neighbor to step up to the plate. This metaphor is society. Everybody wants everybody else to deal with the problems. And no one of us should have to carry the weight of all these ideas. And that's why I'm urging people to express themselves. So there are more people to bounce the ideas off of, because there are very few people I find online that I can actually discuss things with and share a respect level with people who have alternative views than I do. Because I don't know. I just don't know. And I'd like to think that there are people who do know the facts about everything, but there aren't. Because if there were, we wouldn't have the problems we have. I would imagine that those who do have the facts and the truth are probably the ones who speak the least, because it seems just so impossible to get people to listen. So that's what I've got. I love you all. I do. I love you anonymously. Guy Fawkes. OG truthers. Just remember, if you're a truther, you shouldn't be afraid to change your truth when you find new information. Take care, everybody, and